Ahead and let's go ahead and get started. We are very, very pleased to have a new pastor, at least to his particular congregation, Pastor Robert R.A. Turner of the Empowerment Temple AME Church in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of myself, and on the recommendation of the Senator from District 40. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Let us pray. Our Creator, our God, our Redeemer, our friend, the lifter up of our head, we bow before you in humble submission, beseeching you to grant us the activity of our limbs and the cognizance of our minds. Help us to extract the pearls of wisdom from your word. Help our souls to take and do what needs to be done to glorify you. Strengthen us to care for the weak. Enrich us to give to the poor. Educate us to teach our children. Bring your peace to us at this violent and turbulent time. Go with those who just gotten into a car accident on the highway. Heal us, O God, during this pandemic. Grant to these, your public servants, your private wisdom to lead with grace and to serve with gratitude. As you are hearing the calls of all your children, please hear our call today in this auspicious and august body known as the Maryland State Senate. We pray today. Amen.
Amen. Well said, sir. Thank you. Thank you. What a great way to start us back. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 40.
Mr. President, thank you so much for inviting Reverend Turner. Reverend Turner serves as my pastor at the Empowerment Temple AME, and I have the honor of serving on the trustee board there. He's been with us for 9 weeks now. He comes by way of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he pastored the historic Vernon Chapel AME Church, which was the only edifice that was left in Tulsa after the horrific massacre of so many African Americans during that time. We are honored to have Reverend Turner with us here in Baltimore and in the state of Maryland. Mr. President, I ask that we please journalize the prayer this morning.
Thank you, Senator. We most certainly, if there are no objections, will journalize the wonderful remarks this morning. We're so thankful. And the pastor was mentioning that he had a good walk this morning with his kids to school. So the 46th District is so grateful to have him here. This being the day prescribed by proclamation of the Governor of Maryland for the meeting of the General Assembly in special session, the Senate will now come to order. We'll begin by calling the roll by district. The clerk will call the roll.
District 1, George C. Edwards. District 2, Paul D. Quarterman. District 3, Ronald N. Young. District 4, Michael J. Huff. District 5, Justin Reedy. District 6, Johnny Ray Salling. District 7, J.B. Jennings. District 8, Catherine A. Klossmeyer. District 9, Katie Fry Hester. District 10, Dolores G. Kelly. District 11, Shelley Hedelman. District 12, Clarence K. Lamb. District 13, Guy J. Gazzoni. District 14, Craig J. Zucker. District 15, Brian J. Feldman. District 16, Susan C. Lee. District 17, Cheryl C. Kagan. District 18, Jeff Wallstreicher. District 19, Benjamin F. Kramer. District 20, William C. Smith, Jr. District 21, James C. Rosapep. District 22, Paul G. Pinsky. District 23, Ron L. Watson. District 24, Joanne C. Benson. District 25, Melanie Griffith. District 26, O.B. Patterson. District 27, Michael A. Jackson. District 28, Arthur Ellis. District 29, Jack Bailey. District 30, Sarah K. Elrith. District 31, Brian W. Simonera. District 32, Pamela Beidel. District 33, Edward Riley. District 34, Robert Casserly. District 35, Jason C. Gallion. District 36, Stephen S. Hershey. District 37, Adelaide C. Eckhart. District 38, Mary Beth Carroza. District 39, Nancy J. King. District 40, Antonio Hayes. District 41, Jill P. Carter. District 42, Chris West. District 43, Mary Washington. District 44, Charles E. Signor III. District 45, Corey V. McCrae. District 46, William C. Ferguson IV. District 47, Malcolm Augustine.
All right, 46 senators having answered to their names, a quorum being present. The Senate of Maryland for the 2021 special session is now ready for the transaction of business. We're going to have some procedural work to get the special session up and running, so we'll run through that now. The first order of business is a message from the executive. The clerk will read the message.
Whereas every decade, Maryland and other states must, based on the data from the United States Census Bureau, create districts from which representatives to the United States House of Representatives are to be elected. Whereas the Maryland Citizen Redistricting Commission, which is independent from legislative influence, conducted open and transparent proceedings with integrity and fairness, enabled public input and participation, and exercised impartial judgment, has prepared a plan for Maryland's congressional districts. Whereas the Commission has submitted its final plans and maps for congressional districts for introduction to the General Assembly, and whereas a majority of the members elected to the Senate and a majority of the members elected to the House of Delegates have joined in a petition requesting that I convene the General Assembly in extraordinary session. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence J. Hogan Jr., Governor of the State of Maryland, pursuant to the powers vested in me by Article 3, Section 14 of the Constitution of Maryland, do hereby proclaim and convene an extraordinary session of the General Assembly of Maryland to commence at 10 a.m. on Monday, December 6, 2022, in the state capitol in the city of Annapolis for the purpose of establishing the state's congressional districts. Given under my hand and the Great Seal of the State of Maryland in the city of Annapolis this 5th day of November 2021, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., Governor.
The proclamation is read and order journalized. The next order of business is the order of organization. We have several pieces here. The first order will be around rules. Before we read the order, we have a proposed amendment to the Senate rules. This is an amendment to Rule 18. The chair recognizes the chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. Mr. President, the Rules Committee met last Friday and voted unanimously in support of an amendment to Rule 18. As amended, Senate Rule 18 includes the Committee on Reapportionment and Redistricting. It states that the committee is only in effect during the 2021 special session and the 2022 regular session. I move the adoption of Senate Bill 18, Senate Rule 18.
Thank you, Senator. So, Senators, just to make sure, this is the adoption of the full rules with the proposed amendment to Rule 18A1. Is there any discussion on the rules? Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Yeah, I just heard a comment there. You said this applies to the 2022 session as well. I thought we adopted rules each session.
It would be adopted, it would be abrogated, if the chairman wants to correct, it would be abrogated at the conclusion of the 22 session. So it would be we would still have to adopt the rules for the 22
Okay.
session. All right. Any further discussion? All right, if there is no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll on the adoption of the rules.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 46 votes in the affirmative, the rules are adopted. The next order is a message. The clerk will read the message. Excuse me, the order around the desk officers.
okay. By the majority leader, ordered by the Senate of Maryland that the desk officers elected during the 2021 regular session continue to serve for the special legislative session of 2021.
We love our desk officers. Thank you so much. Without objection, the order is adopted. Clerk will read the next order.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh,
When the rules-
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, this is the clerk. Not quite yet. We'll get to that one in just a second. We gotta put the money in order first. Clerk will read the order around the monies.
By the majority leader, ordered by the Senate of Maryland that the monies appropriated for the expenses of the special legislative session of 2021, as set forth in the appropriations bill, be paid upon the joint order of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Delegates.
All right. Are there any objections? Without objection, the order is adopted. We've got one more order here. The clerk will read the next order.
By the majority leader, ordered that the President shall appoint the employees necessary for the proper transaction of business of this special legislative session of 2021, as provided for in the budget. This order to remain in effect until changed or modified by the Senate.
All right. Are there any objections? Without objection, the order is adopted. The next order of business is an announcement by the President. The clerk will read the announcement.
The President announces that the leadership will remain the same as announced on April 12, 2021.
All right, the announcement is read and ordered journalized. We have another announcement. This is about committees. Clerk will read that announcement.
The President appoints to the legislative standing committees pursuant to Senate Rule 18A1 the appointments as effective as of December 6, 2021, and that information is on your desk.
The announcement is read and ordered journalized. Senators, again, that is on your desk. Next order of business is an announcement by the Minority Caucus. Clerk will read the announcement.
The Senate Minority Caucus met on October 4th, 2021 for the purpose of electing the minority floor leaders for the 2022 legislative session. The following members have been selected. Minority Leader, the Honorable Byron W. Simonera, District 31. Minority Whip, the Honorable Justin Reedy, District 5. Deputy Minority Leader, the Honorable Edward R. Riley, District 33.
All right, the announcement is read and ordered journalized. We now have a message from our dear friends across the hall, the House of Delegates. The clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates has organized pursuant to Article 2, Section 16 of the Constitution of Maryland. We respectfully propose, with your concurrence, the appointment of a joint committee of 4 members, 2 on the part of the House and 2 on the part of the Senate, to wait upon the governor and inform him that the General Assembly is now organized and prepared to receive any communications he may desire to make. We have appointed on the part of the House of Delegates, Delegate Lukey and Delegate Buckle. By order, Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
All right, the message is read and ordered journalized. We will now send the House a message. The clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate has organized pursuant to Article 2, Section 16 of the Constitution of Maryland. We respectfully propose, with your concurrence, the appointment of a joint committee of 4 members, 2 on the part of the Senate and 2 on the part of the House, to wait upon the governor and inform him that the General Assembly is now organized and prepared to receive any communications he may desire to make. We have appointed on the part of the Senate, Senators King and Senator Simonera, by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary.
All right, the message having been read is ordered adopted. Next, we have to send a message to the governor to make sure that he knows we're here. Right? The clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, His Excellency, the Governor of Maryland, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr. The Senate of Maryland is organized and prepared to receive any communication you may desire to make. The President of the Senate is the Honorable William C. Ferguson IV. By order, Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary.
All right, the message is read and adopted. So, all right, that we are now officially at work. We've set ourselves up. We are in the place of business again. I know everybody is missing the Cenopods, and it's amazing that I can't just see our majority leader who was right in the direct middle. It's pretty remarkable to think what's happened between since April when we left and where we are today. It's certainly been an ongoing experience, extraordinary in every way. We have seen ups and downs, we've seen personal losses, we've seen victories, we've seen kids go back to school, we've seen the ongoing challenges with the workforce. And through all of it, the work has not stopped. It has not stopped for a single day, because this is one of those once in 100-year moments where the job of public service is more important than ever. We have 3 important things to get through this week. We've got to take up a new congressional map. We're going to elect a new treasurer, and we're going to take up some of the veto overrides as we're required to do under the state constitution. One little quick point that I think is important on the status of the Senate of Maryland these days. We received the decennial data from the Census Bureau about 4 to 5 months later than we traditionally would have. That meant what was traditionally an 8-month period to move everything forward had to be condensed in the middle of a pandemic. But if there's anything I've learned, it's that this institution and this body gets the work done. And so that's why we're here. Even though we got it around August and had only 3 months, we've got a decennial map to approve this year. I'm sure we will have spirited debate, but the work is getting done on behalf of Marylanders. So we're going to be efficient, we're going to be effective, and we're going to get in and out. So without further ado, assuming that we are ready for the introduction of bills, our first order of business is the simple resolution. And Senators, this is related to the Rule 118 that we adopted back in the beginning of 2021 and then readopted now, having to deal with the public health emergency as we all sit here in masks. So if the clerk will read the resolution, and then we will recognize the chair of the Rules Committee.
Implementation of modified procedures due to COVID-19. For the purpose of implementing modified procedures for the Senate of Maryland due to COVID-19, whereas the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Maryland Department of Health continue to advise residents of the state to take precautions, including getting vaccinated, wearing masks, and keeping at least 6 feet of distance from others to slow the spread of COVID-19. And whereas as of December 2nd, 2021, there have been over 589,100 confirmed cases and almost 11,000 confirmed deaths from COVID-19 in the state. And whereas hospitalizations due to COVID-19 continue to put a strain on the state's healthcare system, with a daily count of hospitalizations over 500 since August 2021. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of Maryland that due to the continuing spread of COVID-19, there remains the necessity to implement modified procedures to protect the health or safety of the members of the Senate of Maryland, their staff, and the public. And be it further resolved that Rule 118 of the Senate of Maryland Rules now applies.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. When the Rules Committee met last Friday, it also took up Senate Simple Resolution 1, which declares that due to the continued spread of COVID-19, we still need modified procedures to ensure the health and safety of all. The committee voted unanimously to support the adoption of the Senate Simple Resolution. I move, Mr. President, that we accept the Simple Resolution.
All right, Senators, the chair of the Rules Committee moves that we adopt and pass the Simple Senate Resolution number 1. Senators, you should have this on your desks. Are there any questions or discussion about the resolution? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 34.
Yeah, you say it's on our desk. I'm not seeing.
It's on the floor system, apparently. I'm sorry.
I click on that and it says does not exist.
We could have the Senator, we could have the clerk reread it, if that would be helpful.
Well, I think we'd like to see some copies of this, if you don't mind, Mr. President.
Certainly, Senator. We will get copies made. You know, actually, this is a good aside. We don't have any pages. Normally, we don't have pages for the special sessions. We generally make do. But one of the challenges we've had with the page program this year is that is the housing issue, which has actually turned out to be much more complicated than anybody could have imagined. So we are looking to try and do a modified page program this upcoming session. We're going to do the best we can, but we're going to have a reduced number. Why do I say all this? As we are getting copies made, we will have, you know, we're going to have a different session. We're going to have to try and figure out the logistics of handing things out to the degree feasible. So more to come on that front. Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Just while we have a second,
Sure.
I brought it up to your staff and they're working on this, but just for the record, our committee, the special committee being made, they don't have the, I believe, the appropriate number of minority on it, and I think it's just a typo, but if we could get that read into the record with
Yep.
the right people.
Thank you. Yes, that was a misprint on the desk piece. What was passed across the desk was the full committee size. Yes, thank you for pointing that and bringing it to our attention. It is absolutely, Senator from Middle Eastern Shore will definitely, is a member of the committee, will be part of it this afternoon at 12:30. All right, copies are being handed out forthwith. Actually, while we are waiting for those copies to be handed out, can we please welcome our newest senator, the senator from Prince George's County, who we were able to swear in the middle of the pandemic, and who is joining us for the first time in that seat that I once sat in. It's a wonderful seat back there. We welcome Senator Ron Watson. Welcome, Senator. Big shoes to fill, and no doubt we'll fill them. All right, have we handed out the simple resolution? Any discussion, any further discussion on the resolution before we take the matter up? If not, on the resolution, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Simple Resolution Number 1 is adopted, and Rule 118 is in effect for the duration of the special session unless we pass a subsequent resolution withdrawing it. All right, let's go ahead. We have bills to introduce so that we can have the committee hearings today. This is introduction of Senate Bills Number 2. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 1, the President Congressional Districting Plan. Senate Bill 2, the President Congressional Districting Plan. Senate Bill 3, Montgomery County Senators, Montgomery County Board of Education Resident Districts Redistricting Plan, Montgomery County 121 SS. Senate Bill 4, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Commissioner Districts Redistricting Plan. Senate Bill 5, the President, State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy, Plea Agreements, and Annual Report, the Judicial Transparency Act of 2022. Senate Bill 6, the President, Crimes, Firearms, Penalties, and Procedures, Violent Firearms Offender Act of 2022.
All right, bills will be sent to the appropriate committee. The next order of business, Senators, we're going to get through as much as we can now. We're going to start taking up some of the vetoes now. You know, there's some logistics. We always have to start with the Senate bills. We have to wait for the House to work on their House bills. We've got some calendars that are going to be acted on jointly, so we're going to go slowly through this. If there are any questions, stop, ask to get clarification. We don't want to rush this, so we just want to make sure that we get it right. So the first thing that we will take up, if Madam Clerk could read, we have consent vetoed Senate bills number 1. Clerk could read the calendar.
Consent vetoed Senate bills number 1.
All right, Senators. Oh, please.
Shall the bills pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive?
All right, Senators. So the question before the body on the 4 bills that are a part of this calendar, the question is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? These are duplicative bills. A green vote would override the governor's veto. A red vote would sustain the governor's veto of these duplicative policy bills. Any discussion on the calendar before we vote? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anybody wish to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. We're dusting the grease off the wheels. With 47 votes in the negative, the governor's vetoes are sustained. All right, next order of business. Okay, next order of business is consent vetoed Senate bills number 2. Clerk will read the bills. Or excuse me, the calendar.
consent calendar of vetoed Senate bills number 2. Shall the bills pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive?
All right, Senators, these are policy bills that I believe passed the Senate unanimously. There are 5 bills on the calendar. Please take a look at those bills. This is a consent calendar, so 1 vote is for all bills on the calendar. If there are any bills that Senators wish to remove separately, if not, the question is on the calendar. A green vote will vote to override. A red vote will be to sustain the governor's veto. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Would anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, the bills on calendar 2, the veto has been overridden. The clerk will read the message.
by the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 30, Senate Bill 460, Senate Bill 741, Senate Bill 780. Said bills are sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the Senate.
All right, message having been read is adopted. Next order of business is another calendar of bills. This would be consent vetoed calendar number 3. Clerk will read the message.
Consent calendar of
the
vetoed
calendar.
Senate bills number 3. Shall the bills pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive?
All right, Senators, the question before the body is again similar to the last one. These are bills on a consent calendar. Please take a look. We have 6 bills here. 6 bills. Are there any bills that Senators wish to separate? If not, a green vote will be to override the governor's veto. A red vote will be to sustain. If there's no further questions, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, the bill shall pass notwithstanding the objections of the governor, and the vetoes have been overridden. Clerk will read the message.
by the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 9, Senate Bill 95, Senate Bill 199, Senate Bill 417, Senate Bill 717, Senate Bill 829. Said bills are sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the Senate.
All right, message having been read is adopted. All right, Senators, the next bill we're going to do is, or excuse me, the next calendar is going to be consent calendar number 5. Number 5. Clerk will read the calendar.
Consent calendar of vetoed Senate Bills number 5. Shall the bills pass notwithstanding the objection of the Chief Executive?
All right, question before the body is consent calendar number 5. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to postpone calendar number 5 indefinitely under Rule 91.
All right, the Majority Leader has moved to postpone indefinitely under Rule 91. This is a non-debatable question. Are there any objections to the Majority Leader's motion? Without objection, so ordered. We will now go to veto calendar number 4. Clerk will read the calendar.
Consent Wait a minute.
This one is not a consent calendar, Madam Clerk. This is just the veto bills. We've taken care of the consent ones. Now we're on the individual ones.
Okay. Vetoed Senate Bills number 4. Senate Bill 133, Senator Rosapel, Local Tax Relief for Working Families Act of 2021.
All right, the question before the body is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive on Senate Bill 133? Chair recognizes the floor leader on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you will recall, this is a bill we passed to give our local governments the ability to lower taxes, lower the local income taxes on their working people, their middle-class folks. Under current law, localities are barred from giving tax relief to working people and middle-class people unless they give the same tax rates to the millionaires and billionaires. Essentially, all this bill does is give our local governments the ability to give tax relief to the essential workers who've worked so hard supporting us all during this COVID crisis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Questions on Senate Bill 133? Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a little different take on this bill. Our main opposition is summed up by one of the statements in the governor's letter, and I'd just like to read that briefly. It says, the most troubling aspect of Senate Bill 133 is that it masquerades as tax relief when there's no reality and no requirement for counties to implement a bracketed tax system and to actually cut taxes. In addition, this legislation raises the minimum floor that jurisdictions can set on their local income taxes. Now, only in Annapolis would you have a bill titled Local Tax Relief Bill for Working Families, and then when you read the bill, it mandates higher tax rates without any associated mandate for working family tax relief. It increases the minimum tax by double. The county must double their minimum tax. And if you look at a tax bracketed system, what you're trying to do is help the lower income to get a lower tax rate. This bill here says, no, you can't keep the current minimum, which we want to help the working families with. We're going to mandate by state law that you more than double that minimum tax on the essential workers. This is the idea of a tax relief program in Annapolis. But it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. It financially incentivizes our counties to raise that minimum tax to the maximum tax rate. We at the state will give the counties money, millions of dollars, if they will raise that minimum all the way to the maximum. That's the kind of tax relief this bill talks about on essential workers. And not only that, it goes worse. We have a bracketed system at the state level. We have a minimum tax rate. You know what this bill does? It raises that minimum tax level higher than what we charge at the state level. Higher. That's the kind of tax relief they want to provide to essential workers. And then the real kicker, this bill came in to tax those what they consider wealthy, making $500,000, $600,000 a year. This body amended that bill to give tax relief to the super wealthy. That's the bill before us. Tax relief for essential workers came in to tax the wealthy, amended it out, say we're not going to tax you, but we're going to raise the minimum by more than double. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been down here a while, and one thing we haven't talked about is why would the local counties need to raise taxes? It's because this body passed millions and billions of dollars over the years of unfunded mandates on them. We've done it in the last couple years. We say, you have to spend this money. We're not going to give it to you. You've got to figure out how to raise it. Well, this bill helps them. It creates a structure to raise taxes, as was presented in the committee hearing. And the locals, they don't have as much flexibility on raising taxes as the Senate. We can raise it on all kinds of things. At the local level, they have three primary areas: property tax, income tax, and transfer tax. And if you look at the vetoes that the governor put forward, he vetoed 2 bills dealing with increased taxes on income tax, and later this week we'll see on transfer taxes. They're providing a mechanism to allow the counties to raise more and more money because this body puts more and more unfunded mandates on them. That's what this bill is about. And I've been down here long enough to know what happens during election time. This body does not like to raise too many taxes during an election year. So we've got a nice little structure put in here, and I can almost guarantee you next year after the election, that maximum tax rate is going to go up. Come back in a year and see if my words are true. I've seen it time and time again. This is not about tax relief. This is about raising taxes on our locals so they can provide for the unfunded mandates. And I ask that you sustain the governor's veto.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate my colleague from Anne Arundel County looking into this issue. We have a very different interpretation of it based on reading the bill that is before us. This bill does not raise anybody's taxes. Let's start there. It does not require any local government to raise their minimum tax rate. It preserves the current system for every county that wants to keep the current system they have right now. But it does make a change. It says for those counties that want to lower the tax burden on working people and middle-class people, for those counties that want to give a tax break, they'll have the opportunity to help working people and middle-class people without having to give the same benefit to those who have benefited, very frankly, very much more than anybody else during COVID. Financially, who've benefited more. We know who the economic losers have been in the last 2 years. We know who the economic winners have been. What this bill says is the folks who have suffered the most should get a little bit of a tax break. And the counties want to do that. That's why the counties supported it, because they want to lower taxes on working people. That's what this bill does. It does not raise taxes on anybody. It allows the counties to lower taxes. I heard overriding the governor's veto.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion on the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Senator from District 34.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. President. I'm just looking at the bill on page, well, it's 10106. I guess this is the 4th page of the bill. And it says, each county shall set by ordinance or resolution a county income tax equivalent to at least or equal to at least, and it strikes out 1% and puts in 2.25%. I'm not sure how that's not a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the floor leader, presumably on the senator's point.
Yeah, exactly. There is no county that is below 2.5%. This protects the current minimum.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Let's see if there's anybody that would like to speak that has not yet spoken. If not, Chair recognizes Senator from 34.
Do I understand the floor leader to say that the counties can ignore this and they can still leave it at 1% and not raise it to 2.25%?
Well, let's, we're not in a debate mode, so Senator, did the Senator wish
No,
to
that's
ask a
fine. It
question?
just seems like that's, the law says, this is the law of Maryland, and I know some certain states' attorneys in the state believe that they don't have to abide by the law, but this 1% was stricken out, and it says 2.25%. And I don't know how, as a county, you could say, well, we could ignore that and not do 2.25%. I'm not sure how that goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further discussion? Any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, before the body, we have Senate Bill 133. A green vote will be to override the governor's veto. A red vote will be to sustain. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 133 having received a sufficient number to pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive, the veto has been overridden. The clerk will read the message.
ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 133. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order. Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the Senate.
All right, clerk will read the next bill. Oh, excuse me, the message having been read is ordered adopted. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 202, Senator Kelly, Correctional Services, Parole, Life Imprisonment.
All right, question before the body is on Senate Bill 202. Shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? Chair recognizes the floor leader, Senator from District 41.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd urge the body to override the veto of this long-fought bill that finally passed last session. We went over a lot of the reasons for the bill when this body passed it last session, but I'll just reiterate to remind us that Maryland incarcerates a higher percentage of people than most other democracies on the planet, according to the Prison Policy Initiative. That within that group of people that Maryland incarcerates, we incarcerate the highest percentage of black men in this country. I'll repeat that. Maryland incarcerates the highest percentage of black men in this country and holds them for longer sentences. This bill is a minor step in the process of criminal justice reforms that are needed and long overdue in Maryland to fix this situation and right these wrongs. Now, what does this bill actually do? It simply puts us in line with 47 other states that allow their parole commissions to be the final arbiters in determining whether a person's liberty should be restored. And that parole commission here in Maryland consists of 10 members. Those members are appointed by the governor and vetted and through the advice and consent of the Senate, this body. So I would ask for those reasons, a favorable vote on the veto override on this much needed, long overdue bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 4.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I would certainly agree with my colleague from Baltimore City about the problem with over-incarceration. I think this chamber has done an excellent job when it comes to passing legislation to decrease the number of people that are in our prisons. In fact, we've had a historic decrease in Maryland. But I think most of us would realize there are certain people that we do not want to release from prison, people who are dangerous. The people we are talking about in this bill have committed the most heinous crime under our law. They have committed first-degree premeditated murder. That's what we're talking about. And what this does is further make Swiss cheese of our law in Maryland. If you commit now first-degree murder in Maryland, the punishment used to be death, life without the possibility of parole, or parole and the governor signed off. When we get rid of this, we've gotten rid of the death penalty. Now you have life without possibility of parole or this option. When you go to this option and removing the governor, what was said was, yes, many states don't have the governor there to sign off because many states don't even offer parole if you get first degree. If you go through the list of states, about half the states in this country, there's two options, death or life without possibility of parole. If you go kill someone innocent in a premeditated murder in half the states of this country, there is no parole. This will make us, there are only 2 states in the United States I found will have a more liberal law on first-degree murder than the state of Maryland when we pass this. Just understand what we're passing. If you are currently sitting in prison on a first-degree murder, then in 15 years, which is 12 and a half years, you will become eligible. And for people who are sentenced after October 1st of this year, 17 and a half years. Ladies and gentlemen, almost no other state in the United States of America will allow first-degree murderers to have that kind of parole eligibility. And who signs off? Well, the parole board does. What is the vote? We don't know. It's not in state law. There are 10 individuals. Are majority 6 required to vote? No, they are not. For all we know, 2 people are signing off on this. 2 people did the investigation, and 2 people are going to let a premeditated first-degree murderer walk out in 17 and a half years. Almost no other state in the United States of America will allow this to happen. And it does not require 6 of the 10 members. That amendment failed last year on the floor. And furthermore, last year we required juveniles had to serve 20 years hard time. 20 years. A juvenile who committed this crime had to serve 20. An adult, 17 and a half. That is a slap in the face to the law. And furthermore, second-degree murder in our state. I talk about the Swiss cheese of the law. Second-degree murder requires 20 years. This is less than second-degree murder. Folks, what are we doing to our laws? And look what is going around and it happening to our state while we're doing this. While we are passing this last year, homicide rates in Maryland spike in 2020. The national homicide rate jumped 30% in the first year of the pandemic, the largest year-to-year increase in 100 years. A rise in homicides in Maryland contributed to a staggering national spike, marking the biggest one-year increase in more than a century. In fact, nationwide, to find a similar increase, you have to go to 2000. Because what happened in 2000 or 2001? Spike between 2000 and 2001, 9/11, when 3,000 people were killed. That was ruled a homicide. Last year, the city of Baltimore, 335 homicides. And it's not just Baltimore, it's all across our state. Safest city in America sees 8 homicides in 2021. That's Columbia, Maryland. Baltimore city records 300 homicides for the 7th consecutive year. That's November. This is the 7th consecutive year the city of Baltimore has over 300 homicides. A 5-year-old girl and a 69 woman are some of the city's most recent victims. Prince George's County sees over 100 homicides for the first time in a decade. 2021 continues to be a deadly year in our region, with homicides numbers hitting record highs we haven't seen in over a decade. Prince George's police have investigated 108 homicides so far this year. This is October 25th, by the way. The county hasn't seen triple homicides since 2008, when there were 117 for that year. Police say an alarming number of murder cases involve children, some victims of gun violence and other pulling the trigger. If you're wondering where I got this, I just Googled this. This is like CBS, Baltimore Sun. This isn't like some conservative blog or whatever. It took me 10 minutes to Google this before I walked down on the floor. So, ladies and gentlemen, it astonishes me with the amount of mayhem and death. As soon as we leave here, the headlines are full of carnage on our streets. That we are seeing record homicides we have not seen in this country and in this state in 30 years. And yet, we sit here and we pass bills to demoralize our police. Have we checked with our police since last session and seen all the resignations there? And here we pass bills. When it's dealing with nonviolent offenders and second chances, I'm with you 100%. But these are first-degree murderers. This is the worst crime you can commit. And I'll just leave it on this, saying that the parole board is not infallible. In fact, a number of the individuals that they've had come in front of them that the governor's denied, and people who committed heinous crimes, multiple murders, murdered a husband and wife in Anne Arundel County, shot them in their bed. In Montgomery County, there was another case where a woman was assaulted, brutally beaten, stabbed, shot multiple times, and the governor denied that. So this is a huge misstep. We've made complete Swiss cheese of our law here. It's an embarrassment what our criminal law looks like in this state. Now that if you commit second-degree murder, you'll become eligible after first-degree murderers, and we're going to sign off to entrust it in a parole board in which we have no understanding of who's signing off. The law does not require 6 of the 10. I offered that amendment on the floor. That amendment failed. Literally, 2 members of the parole board can let these murderers out in 17 and a half years, and we do all this in the midst of a terrible crime wave. I ask that we sustain this veto.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to take a moment. I think the summary that my colleague from Frederick County just gave is excellent. I think it's a couple of points we want to make sure are clear, just to repeat. Maryland is not some sort of outlier with how we do this, because so many states don't allow for the possibility of parole with premeditated murder, first-degree murder. And when we say a large number of states don't allow that, we're not just talking about some of the states that might spring to mind, conservative, Rust Belt, southern states. We're talking about states like New York and Minnesota that don't even allow for the opportunity for parole with premeditated first-degree murder. We're about to wipe that away to, as my friends just said, continue to make further Swiss cheese of our law, where now you're going to have an opportunity, as someone who committed a first-degree murder, you're going to have an opportunity to get parole with no gubernatorial oversight before someone who's convicted of second-degree murder. Makes no sense at all. Another point in coming down here, we've come down here for this special session for congressional redistricting. But the number one issue in our state right now, whether you read the newspaper, watch the news, or if you just go talk to people in the neighborhood, counties like mine in Carroll County, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel County, the Eastern Shore, it's crime. It's out-of-control crime. And I know there's 2 things I know I'm pretty confident based on not just my own conversations, but even polling that we've seen. People don't want contorted, misshapen districts, and they're really concerned about crime. Well, we're here with an opportunity to take care of both things by supporting the governor's veto, by rejecting the attempt to override this veto. This is not the way to do this. Many years ago, when I was in the House of Delegates, a reform was passed that made sure that the governor had to give an answer in a certain amount of time. And I think that was a fair reform. It would also be different if we were talking about someone serving maybe 30 years or 35 years, and then they come up for parole for premeditated murder. But that's not what this is. As we've heard, 17 and a half years, you'd have the first bite at the apple moving forward past October 1st if we override this veto. I would urge you to listen to the people in our neighborhoods, the people in our communities, that let's not send this message. Let's not further water down the ability to enforce laws and to put dangerous people and keep dangerous people behind bars. This is an important moment, and we don't have to, this is not something that we have to do. We can sustain the governor's veto. It was a wise choice to veto this bill and maybe come back and look at the issue a different way, but this is not the time to make this decision. Our crime is out of control, and we need to make a strong statement that we're not going to continue to water down our laws and continue to send this message that lawless behavior is at all tolerable. And the last thing I'll say is the parole board is a fantastic point. Just to further elucidate that point, the parole commission can meet in pockets, so you can have 3 members that are overseeing cases, not all 10 at once. So it's absolutely right. You can have 2 of 3 members of a parole commission say this person should go, not 6 of 10. And that's a point that should be very clear in everyone's mind when you vote to do this. So I'd urge the body to vote to sustain the governor's veto, and let's let's instead take steps to make our state more safe and crack down on violent crime. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any Chair recognizes, let's do any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak on the proponent side? If not, we'll go to the senator from District 34, followed by the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, can we just stop for a minute with the excessive incarceration line here? This is first-degree intent murder. This means someone murdered someone intending to murder them. And we all know that overwhelmingly victims are the same race as the perpetrator, right? So this is about protecting victims of crime. That's what this is about. How many times have we watched the evening news in this state and watched grieving county executives, grieving mayors, grieving legislators say, enough is enough? They stand beside the dead 5-year-old. They stand beside the woman stabbed to death in the back of a church. They stand out there, and how many times do they say, enough is enough? We can't do this anymore. We've got to take life seriously. Murder is wrong. And then this body comes in here and wants to say that the people currently in jail, people who committed murder up to October, this past October, you get your first parole hearing for first-degree intent to murder. My colleague from Frederick County says 12 and a half years. My sources say 11 and a half years. What message does that send? Does that really send the message enough is enough? That we're serious? That we're finally serious? That we're going to take murder serious in this state? No way. Come on, guys. This is ridiculous. We've got to take this seriously. The governor did the right thing. He did us a favor. He did us a favor, right, in vetoing this bill. 11 and a half years, first parole hearing, where 2 or 3 people sit there and decide if you should get released is absurd. There's nothing about that that's just. At some point, the victims of crime have to have a voice in this body. At some point, their lives, their families' lives must matter. This sends all the wrong message. This has nothing to do with racial equality or justice in any sense of the word. This is an abomination. This is a misuse. We took care. I supported justice reinvestment. I did look at the over-incarceration rates. I didn't want young black men going to jail and rotting because they were involved in some drug deal or distribution or use. We all agreed with that. And now we're back here, and that's a lame argument. People are dead. This is first-degree premeditated. I meant to slit your throat because after I raped you, I did not want you to talk and tell anybody what I did. That's what this is about. This is not about people moving drugs and other crimes like that, people trying to get ahead in economics or whatever. So, colleagues, you need to sustain the governor's veto on this. This is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak on the proponent side? If not, we'll go to Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know a lot has been said, but I think one thing needs to be said. We cannot continue to compromise. This is a compromise. Why? Because we see so many things that are happening, not just in the city of Baltimore, but I see it in my county, Baltimore County. Baltimore County has very serious issues now in the homicide rate that has now broken a record in the state of Maryland. That really bothers me. And we cannot continue to compromise with the people that are committing the crime. I look at the victims and what their families have to go through. It is terrible to see the families, what they have to go through, and then compromising in ways that letting a criminal out, and then their family has to go through this. I think we really need to pay attention to what we're doing. I think the only thing we can do is to do exactly what the governor did and to follow through with this. And I think if we don't, we already have accountability of one of the things that are going on in the state of Maryland and the homicide rate that has gone up tremendously. And it's still not at the end of the year. We are going to continue to see the rate go up, and it's very sad. And I think it breaks every person's heart in this room to see the problem that we have today. We need answers. We need answers in every city. We need answers in every county. We need answers in the state of Maryland to help out these crimes, these homicides. This is not the answer. This is creating more of a problem. Please realize and search your heart. We need to do the right thing for the victims. I know incarceration is a terrible thing, but there's a time for that. And when they commit these kind of crimes, that's why we have the law in place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance Committee.
Yes. One thing that I'd like to remind us of, colleagues, is that at the present time, we have governors who have no particular criminal justice expertise. They aren't attorneys. They don't know if exculpatory evidence was hidden for many years, and there at a later point of time it comes to light. We've got some cases like that in Maryland that are before us right now. We need to remember that the Parole Commission has been specially trained. They have the expertise. They are following social science. They are objective in ways the governors are not. We've had recent governors who wouldn't parole anybody and who subsequently, after the end of their terms, have studied this issue and have said to the public and to the press and to us, we were wrong. We didn't have the expertise that we needed. We didn't know what we were doing. We were led by the headline of the day instead of by social science. And we need to let the 10 members on the Parole Commission, in whatever configuration the current regulations permits, to do what they do based on objective bases. We've had at least 2 recent governors, Glendening and Early, who since their terms have ended, have said to all of us in the public and to those of us on this floor, we are sorry that we played the role we played on this issue at the time we were in office. We've been studying it now that we're out of office and we're not listening to the loudest mouth of the day. We realize that those persons who have training, who have cooler heads, who understand social science and apply it without worrying about how it will impact it. It would be a hard thing for any governor to have to make this decision. I wouldn't want to put it on their shoulders, especially when they got to run in many cases for office again. Because these situations ought not be done based on headlines of the day. They ought to be based on social science. That's what the Parole Commission does. And the bill, after a certain point in time, does increase significantly the number of members of the Parole Commission up to 6 who will have to make these decisions. I ask you to keep your heads cool, to think about the fact that we do have a lot of people that are deserving of coming out, especially if the social science and the study of the records uphold that fact. I would ask you to think and not just to feel based on what you're hearing in the press and in the streets. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from Historic St. Mary's, 29.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There's really 2 issues with this bill that we're discussing. And the issue is, what we just heard, was pulling the governor out, right? Pulling the governor out of this bill and this process is one thing. And we debated that. That was an issue that we talked about, right? That's in this bill. But the biggest issue here is that we're taking people that committed first-degree murder and releasing them or giving them the opportunity at 11 and a half years, right? That is something that we have all seen, right? We see it every day on the news. We see it in our communities. Just had it happen last week in my community. Lost a mother and a first-grade child, right? And if you're telling me that that is justice, that in 11 and a half years that that person gets out with first-degree murder, that is wrong. We are wrong to even discuss this to this degree in this body.
Thank you, Senator. All right, are there any further senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, I think we'll hear a concluding wrap-up from the floor leader, and let's ring the bells so that we can get folks back in. Do we have everybody in? Chair recognizes the floor leader of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just have a correction and a clarification. The bill plainly states that after serving 20 years, a person would then become first eligible for this parole consideration. There are very few, if any, ever people that have ever been recommended for release upon that first meeting with the parole members, the first opportunity for parole. I also want to make the correction that the bill clearly states that there must be an affirmative vote of 6 members of the parole commission before someone's liberty could be restored or not. Now, I've heard some discussion about this idea of less than that. Well, it's 20 years at the first time, and yes, a person that's earned diminishing credits could possibly have some where it could be less than the 20, but it certainly would never be the 11.5 that my colleague spoke about. My understanding is that the earliest possible opportunity would be at about 17.5 years before there could be a first consideration. Again, very few people are ever recommended for parole at the first meeting. Again, initially, there are 2 members of the board, the commission, that meet. They interview the person. They look at a myriad of factors before they make a decision to recommend someone for what's called a risk assessment. And only upon having that risk assessment could there ultimately be a recommendation for the entire 10-member board to make the decision for someone to be released. So there's a lot of vetting and rigorous work done to make sure that the right decisions are made. Some of the considerations that are given, and we talk about, I've heard a lot about the horrible, most heinous crimes, but I want us to understand that we're talking about the end of a process. These are cases that have already been litigated in court. A jury, a judge has made a decision as to a sentence, and now they've been serving a sentence, and it's up to the parole commission to make a decision whether or not it's in the best health, for the health and well-being and the welfare of our community to have this person released. And if that decision is no, they will not recommend them for release. The considerations that are given are the length of the sentence, whether there's been prior incarcerations, what are the nature and circumstances of the crime, what is the institutional adjustment record, what is the person's propensity for rehabilitation, what is the person's mental, physical, and moral fitness for release. And that's just a portion. That's most of what they consider. And so I would urge this body, once again, to vote to override this veto. We've heard a lot of sensational talk, but what's actually in the bill is very, not only common sense, but it's really in the best interest of society. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Question before the body.
President.
Yes, the question before the body is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the chief executive? Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from Frederick County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to clarify, there's 2 separate things we're talking about in the bill. You're talking about the people who are currently incarcerated. Those people are 15 years with good time credits eligible, which is 12.5 years. So in fact, that is correct. And the current people, it only takes 2 commissioners voting unanimously to say they can be released. It'd be the people going forward after 2021 that would require 6. But you have people who are currently in the system with 2 commissioners and 12.5 years can become eligible. And under the new system, it's 20 years, it's 17.5 they're going to become eligible. And again, as I stated in the beginning, only 2 other states, the United States of America, have a system that is that liberal for allowing parole in first-degree murder.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City, Baltimore County, followed by the senator from District 34.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, to follow my colleague from Baltimore City, when you look at the text of the bill, current law has it that someone can actually have this process occur as early as 15 years. Because of this law, it's increased from 15 to 20 years. And just a note, because it seems that I'm hearing a lot about the parole commissioners, I took a look at the fiscal year 2020 annual report, and when one looks at the commissioners' biographies, 6 of the 10 current commissioners were either police officers or sheriffs. I can't imagine that they're soft and liberal on crime. 3 of them are lawyers. One was an assistant state's attorney. Let's see, what was the other? Criminal justice background. So again, look, I just wanted to point out, these are the facts that we're dealing with. These are not liberal people. They're appointed by the governor. We're not taking away we're not taking away governor's power here. He or she will still have that ability to appoint the type of a commissioner that they want. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, let's just make sure there are no senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak. If not, Chair recognizes the senator from District 34.
Thank you, President. Like my colleague from Frederick, just rise to make some corrections here. I guess, colleagues, first of all, this is our policy. The commissioners will have their chance to set their own policy. None of us know what that policy will be. They're not appointed yet, right? So I don't know what their policy is going to be. What their policies, what their backgrounds are, that's up to some future governor. None of us know. We're here today to set this body's policy, not to say, well, some future governor probably wouldn't do something. I don't buy that one at all. This is our policy, our statement of policy. What do we believe? Do we believe that 12 and a half years is okay? That's the policy we're setting, all right? And then let's really carefully at this bill, because we keep hearing the 20 years. Folks, it's right up on page 2 of the bill. It says that it talks about, it sets these in 2 different groups. It says for those committed before October 1. That means everybody that's already there, everybody who already committed murder up until 2 months ago, right? If you're there, it's the 15 years less good time, diminution credits and everything else. My senator for Frederick says that takes it down to 12 and a half. My state's attorney calculated 11 and a half. In any event, it goes to, I'll go with his numbers, 12 and a half years. Everybody in the DOC for first degree intended to kill you murder, their standard will be 12 and a half years, right? Before they're eligible for parole. That's what we're talking about. Don't buy the 20 years applies to people who most of them they didn't even commit their murder yet, right? So they can change. And oh, by the way, once we change this, it's changed, right? Because their sentences are set. We can't go back and say, oh, we screwed that up. Once we amend the law, it is the law. This is for the people there now who intended to slit somebody's throat so they couldn't talk about the rape. They're ineligible for parole at 12 and a half years. That's what this is. And the parole commission numbers, again, are different. If you committed your crime before October of 2021, the 6 members doesn't apply to you. What the senator from Frederick County talked about does apply to you. No number is established. So we've created this bill that has, here's where we are today, and that's really bad. And then you've created some future thing that can always be amended. We don't know where that one's going to go. That's for future legislatures can come out and even make that one even more watered down. But what we're asking today is for this body to say our policy for people who killed our loved ones is you get to walk before the parole commission of a few people after 11 and a half years. That is what this says, and don't let anybody tell you that's not what this says, because that's wrong. That's misleading. This is important stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. I think we know the question. The question before the body is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the chief executive? A green vote will override the governor's veto. A red vote will sustain. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, the bill shall pass, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, and the governor's veto is overridden. The clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 202. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the Senate.
Message having been read is adopted. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 746, Senator Gazzoni, Education, Community Colleges, Collective Bargaining, Shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive?
All right, Senators, questions on Senate Bill 746, Community Colleges Collective Bargaining. Shall it pass notwithstanding the objections? Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues, and my best wishes to all for a very happy holiday season. Colleagues, you may recall that this good bill fills a gap that exists in our educational system at the moment. Currently, our public school employees have the ability to avail themselves of collective bargaining, and our four-year universities have the ability to avail themselves of collective bargaining, but our community college employees don't have that opportunity. That's what this bill does. It's about opportunity. Now, the bill has been heavily negotiated between those who are supporting it and those from the community college side, and because of all the changes and modifications to the bill that changed it from the way it came in, our Maryland Association of Community Colleges stepped back from their opposition to the bill. The bill affords the employees at a community college to have the choice, the opportunity to decide if they want to be represented by a bargaining unit. It doesn't require, it does not mandate, it affords the opportunity. If the employees at your neighborhood community college are not currently represented by a collective bargaining unit, and they are satisfied, they're content with the management at their community college, then everything remains just as it is. But for those employees at a community college who feel that they would be better represented having a bargaining unit putting forth the issues that they are concerned about with management, then they'll have the opportunity to vote on that. The bill has been, again, as I mentioned, heavily modified. It phases in the requirements of the bill and the collective bargaining associated with it. There are the 8 larger community colleges in the state. They will phase in sooner the collective bargaining rights, but then it goes beyond that before you get to the issue of wages. It pushes that even further out. The 7 smaller community colleges, it extends an even greater time before they are phased into the bargaining process and pushes out yet even further the period of time before wages become the subject of those negotiations. Folks, our community colleges are the backbone of every one of our communities. The people who are working there are our friends, our neighbors, the people who live in our communities. Let's show them the respect and the dignity that they deserve to have the opportunity, if they choose to have collective bargaining. With that, I would certainly welcome any questions, Mr. President, and I would encourage a green vote to override the governor's veto. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following up on the dulcet tones of my friend from Montgomery County is a tough act to follow. I will do my best. He spoke about our friends and neighbors being the ones who work at our community colleges. Our friends and neighbors are also the ones who scratch, claw, pinch, and save to attend our community colleges. Community college is the entry-level gateway to higher education for so many of us and so many of our friends and neighbors. It was for me. I'm a community college graduate, and I'm proud of that, and I'm very thankful for the opportunities that it brought me and so many people that I know, whether it was a need to get caught up on some remedial work, not pointing any fingers, or whether it was the need to be able to afford to go to college and not incur massive debt, or if it's someone who needs a trade, learn about a trade or focus. The community colleges are this fascinating and fabulous melting pot of different people that come. And one of the great things about them is that they are affordable, especially when you compare it to a four-year school. In fact, I believe as with the future of our higher education, and I know many of you in this room I know agree, community colleges are an absolutely vital part of that. And the people that work there are our friends and neighbors too. But you know who pays the biggest freight? The people who pay the most is our county governments and the people who pay tuition. The state contributes the least of it's a three-legged stool, but our leg is the shortest. But here we are giving counties no say. County governments have no say in this. We're saying you have to do this. You have to allow this. We're also not talking about places where people are working in a coal mine. It's a community college. There are choices of places to work. And in most cases, there are, for example, I know in my local community college and some others that I've researched, there are faculty senates and there are negotiating bodies. They're not unions, where they're able to negotiate for different things. I'm speaking on this issue because community colleges are unique and special. They vary by geography, they vary by size, and by labor market even. All this bill really is doing is going to add the cost to education, and it's going to have to be passed down to the very people who we want to try to keep education affordable for. Working families, single parents, kids getting out of high school and not completely knowing what they want to do yet. Kids in high school able to take dual courses. If we make that more and more expensive, particularly in our rural and exurban areas, we're going to find ourselves pricing people out of education more and more. And I spoke a moment ago, when I spoke on another bill, about crime being really the hot button issue. I know for the last 4 to 6 years, especially every year down here, I hear about college affordability and student loan debt. So on one hand, we're saying cost of college is out of control. On the other hand, we're forcing every college, every community college, into this one-size-fits-all collective bargaining process. And I'll just say one last thing. Our community college, my community college locally, they dip into their foundation funds to help keep tuition low already. They raise funds. They raise charitable money. They just had a major fundraiser last week. They raise charitable funds, and they dip into that to try to keep tuition affordable. And they dip into it for staffing and for different types of enhancements for their employees. So this is simply making community college is going to make it much more expensive. It's going to add to the costs, and I would urge the body to not override the governor's veto on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further senators who have not yet wished to speak on the proponent side? If not, we'll hear from the senator from the lower. Chair recognizes the vice chair of the Finance Committee.
Yeah, just a real question for the floor leader.
Will the floor leader yield for a question?
Yes,
Okay,
sir. So we're not breaking, just to be clear, we are not breaking new ground here. Is it not the case that we have collective bargaining currently in Maryland at Montgomery College, at Prince George's Community College, at the Community College of Baltimore County, Baltimore City Community College? Is that not the case?
That is absolutely correct.
And is it also not the case that in those situations, when collective bargaining was introduced in those 4 community colleges, that there was no evidence to indicate that tuition actually increased?
Thank you for that question, and the answer is there was no direct correlation whatsoever between tuition increases and the collective bargaining afforded those community colleges. And in fact, to the contrary, studies have indicated that not only did tuition rates not go up, but they are lower in some of those communities than where we do not afford collective bargaining to the community colleges.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that the entire premise of
Mr.
the
President,
argument we
point
just...
of order.
Chair,
Yes.
one moment, Senator. Chair, point of order,
Okay,
Senator from.
yeah. Yeah, I think the chair, the ruling from the chair in the debate on the last bill was that there would be no questioning of the floor
Oh, no,
leader.
Senator, no, that was not the rule. I was just clear, the chair was clarifying, was it a question, as opposed to it being a part of the debate. So it wasn't saying that there could not be questions.
Thank you.
Senator, may
Okay,
proceed.
well, the final question then, it would be fair to say that the entire premise of the gentleman's core argument that we just heard about tuition increases would follow is, in the opinion of the floor leader, somewhat misguided. Would that be fair?
That would be fair, and again, there has never been any study that proves that that is the circumstance. And I also, if I may, Mr. President, point out, there are certain things well beyond wages that are part of the negotiating process, non-economic issues that comprise a significant portion of what this issue is about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the Lower Eastern Shore, 38.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see friends. Before standing up and making remarks to urge you to sustain the governor's veto, my friend and colleague from District 37 and I had the opportunity just last week to meet with Dr. Ray Hoy. He's the president of Warwick Community College and former president of Chesapeake, and really at the forefront of community colleges in Maryland. And we had the opportunity specifically to talk to the president about the impact of this bill. And first, and as the bill's sponsor noted earlier in his comments, I think we're all in agreement, and especially of those of us who work extremely closely with our community college students, faculty, president, that our community colleges are at the forefront of workforce development, and they especially have stepped up during this time when we have extreme shortages in every major industry. On top of that, their work has been made even more difficult during this economic recovery of COVID-19, where we have the extreme workforce shortages, yet the numbers have declined, a number of students have declined in community colleges. So back in March 4th of 2021, when this bill was before the Senate Finance Committee, Dr. Hoy, in his testimony, noted that this is a very bad time to press for collective bargaining legislation. Last week, when my colleague and I met with the president, he noted today it's an even worse time. He said, and again in his testimony, these unbudgeted costs will be a burden on students through tuition and fee increases. He also noted in his testimony that this action will inequitably burden students of color and economically disadvantaged populations by forcibly increasing the cost. It was noted earlier by the minority leader that collective bargaining at community colleges should be a local decision. And again, it was noted that the state is the minority partner in community college funding, with counties at 39% and students at 37%. So the counties should have a role in deciding whether their community college should be subject to collective bargaining. I wanted to share this meeting with my colleagues because it was just last week. It was in light of all of the challenges that these community colleges are facing. It's in light of the fact that back in March, the president of Warwick Community College said it was a bad time to press for collective bargaining. And in light of the fact that we have this extreme workforce shortage, and these community colleges are at the forefront. So this is not the time to move forward this is also the time to sustain the governor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators on the proponent side that have not yet spoken that wish to speak? If not, the chair recognizes the senator from the Middle Eastern Shore, followed by...
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I would just like to echo my good colleague from the Lower Eastern Shore. Many of us on the Eastern Shore have not recovered economically. And many of our counties who would be contributing to our colleges, our community colleges, aren't there yet. They're still struggling. So I would just suggest to you that currently, if any community college wants to enter into collective bargaining agreements, as it's always been, there is that possibility currently already available. So I do not believe this bill is necessary, and I will sustain the governor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to speak briefly in response to the interesting dialogue on the floor a couple of minutes ago, what I wonder is the difference between Montgomery College or Baltimore City Community College and Chesapeake or Warwick. It'd be like comparing Walmart to your neighborhood, like local grocery store. They're different entities. Also, I don't believe, and I'm happy to be wrong, I don't believe those all four were forced to do it in a one-size-fits-all manner. Perhaps I'm incorrect. This is a forcing of every community college to adopt a certain one-size-fits-all way to approach a very complex issue of labor relations and collective bargaining. So, sort of going to have to spare me the, studies show tuition didn't go up. Have they studied a small community college supporting a county, or supporting, in some cases, as my friends from the Eastern Shore, supporting 2, 3, or 4 counties? It's different. They're different. And they have the option now. Nobody's saying, they're not forbidden from pursuing it. They're not forbidden. They can have those discussions. So again, I'd ask I understand how the makeup of this body. I understand that labor is something that, is something that people pay attention to. But I think it's just really important that we remember that Montgomery College and Baltimore City College, and I support all our community colleges, no matter how big or small, by the way. This isn't about that. But it's different. And we need to keep that in mind. And to truly be one Maryland, and moving forward, we need to keep that in mind in all policy debates. A one-size-fits-all approach of different size institutions, businesses, whatever, it's not the way to go. If we're going to truly be a one Maryland that we talk about all the time, we really have to keep that in mind and keep in mind what some of our rural and smaller areas need. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 47th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. We, in our committee, we were thoughtful on this, and so we actually graduated the time on this legislation to give more time for those who, needed some more time. I mean, that's part of what was talked about with regard to the negotiation with this. This was negotiated, and it is fair, and it's simply the right thing to do to give these Marylanders the opportunity to organize, and I will be voting to override the veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, the question before the body is, shall Senate Bill 746 pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote will be to override the governor's veto. A red vote will be to sustain. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote?
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote.
Explain their chair recognizes the senator from College Park.
Thank you very much. I support this for all the reasons that have been expressed, but the debate is focused all about wages, and collective bargaining is about wages, but it's also about working conditions. I represent College Park, as you know. In the last 2 years, we've had huge debates in the College Park campus and the College Park community about how to handle COVID. How it affects the workers, how it affects the students, how it affects the people in the community. I have to say, the fact that the working people at the University of Maryland are represented by a union was tremendously helpful in terms of getting that perspective, the on-the-ground perspective. For example, the housekeepers. When the students weren't going back, when the faculty members weren't going back, the university was saying the housekeepers had to go back, the food people had to go back, the people who take care of the buildings have to come back. And the fact that there was a union to represent those people to make sure they were safe made the students safer, made the faculty safer, made the community safer. So collective bargaining is important, not just for wages, not just for respect, but to protect workers and the people they work with. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further explanations of vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 746, having received a superconstitutional majority, the bill shall pass, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, and the veto is overturned. All right, senators, well done. The desk.
I'm going to read.
Oh, we have a message. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 746. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander, Secretary of the Senate.
Message having been read is adopted. That handles for the moment, what we have on the Senate bill vetoes. This is going to be a very fluid session, so things are going to, when we get them, we're going to get them, and we're going to try and move. So make sure that you're staying close, particularly with the potential for snow on Wednesday, which of course, why wouldn't there be snow in the middle of the week? We have a couple of announcements, and then we have a very special presentation from the district senator from District 33. Let's do the committee announcements first. The Committee on Redistricting and Reapportionment. Madam Majority Leader, the committee today.
Yes, we will be meeting at 12:30 for a hearing on the congressional maps.
Thank you very much, and it will be virtual, correct?
Yes, virtual.
Excellent. All right, any other committee announcements? Delegation announcements? Chair recognizes the chair of the Montgomery County delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Montgomery County colleagues, please, immediately following the end of session, if you would go to the Silver Room for that very quick vote that needs to be taken, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further announcements? Let's do a, oh, yes, Chair recognizes Senator.
No, I would just like to, personal privilege, I guess, for the whole Senate, but
Senator,
just
may
to
proceed.
say that our past colleague, Senator Mathias, is somewhere in the room.
Ah, yes.
Where is he?
Right behind us, Senator from Rochelle. Below that side. Thank you, Senator, for that. Thank you. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to take a quorum call, and then we're going to hear from the senator from District 33. So if we could call the roll for quorum.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 senators in the chamber, quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. The chair recognizes the senator from District 33.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is much a point of personal privilege, and I thank you for this opportunity. In August of this past year, we lost one of my constituents. It was a little bit of an unusual situation. A young lady by the name of Sarah Peterson Burns died in the service to our country. Now, this young lady grew up in Severna Park, just up the road. And while she was there, she ran track and she was a lacrosse player, a well-rounded student. And after graduating from Severna Park High School, she went to our local community college. And after 2 years, she made the decision to enlist in the Navy. And again, when we send our young people to the military, we hope for the best. We hope that they don't get assigned to battlefields. We hope they don't get in harm's way. Well, Sarah spent a few years as a mechanic on helicopters down in Norfolk. And after a few years of doing that, she had a change of heart. She wanted to do something different, to be more impactful for her Navy comrades. So she went into become a search and rescue medical technician. Now again, if you know what that means, they probably jump out of helicopters into dangerous places trying to recover injured and wounded people. Well, in August of this past summer, there was a helicopter crash off the San Diego coast. She was one of several Navy personnel who died. We have two ways of recognizing selfless service in this body. One is to offer a resolution. And Mr. President, I have a resolution that I will provide to the family. But the other way to do it is when we adjourn in honor of that person. Her husband, Lucas, they got married in 2017. He lives still in San Diego. Her father, George Peterson, is from San Diego. And she has a twin sister, Micah, who lives up in New Jersey.
We are suffering as a community. They are suffering as a family. Just wanted to make sure they know. And here's some pictures. Hi, guys. Just want to let you know, we suffer with you, and we honor her memory, and we thank you for being with us today. Mr. President, if we could adjourn, when we finally adjourn, we may recess right now, but when we finally adjourn, I'd ask the leader to adjourn in the memory of Sarah Peterson Burns, who offered the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, and just can't thank you enough for bringing that to this unbelievable sacrifice to the entire Burns family and extended family. We agree with you, and we are so deeply sorry for your loss. We thank you, and we will do what we can in honoring your relative and the unbelievable service, but her memory will live on through you. So thank you, and without a doubt. Certainly puts things in perspective, Senator. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We thank you all. All right, with that, I believe we are going to recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand in recess until Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Without objection, Tuesday, 10 a.m. So ordered.